Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about the movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to MovieFilm. It's episode 289. I'm Zaki Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zaki?
Hey, it's tax week.
Yeah. So are you good? Did you get everything in?
Well, I mean, I'm good in that, I'm still here. I'm fine.
I'm still alive. Yeah.
I'm less good because my accountant has this tendency to lead with how big a refund I'm getting from the federal before telling me how much I owe the state.
Yeah.
So all told, I ended up owing a couple hundred. Which is fine.
Worse. It could be worse. Could be worse.
However,
yeah.
Don't lead off with, "Hey, you're getting like several $1,000s back." So I had like a brief about 10 seconds of thinking about the cruise I was going to go on.
The cruise.
Before realizing that no, I'm paying for somebody else's cruise probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear it.
Yeah, but hey, like I said, I'm still here, so it's all good. We're on the other side of tax day, so upwards and onwards.
Yeah, actually, I had a fun surprise happen this past not the past week, but the week before. But we did a commentary, so I didn't get to talk about it. But when we began episode 288, I mentioned that I always forget that my chair is squeaky. Yes. And that I should really, really go get WD-40. I think at almost every episode, and I never do it. A couple days later, I got a package from Amazon at my front doorstep. I have no idea what this is. And I open it up and there's a note inside that says, "We can't have you being distracted by a squeak during the pod recordings." And it was from Jason Thorwell, a good friend and listener. And I really appreciate it, Jason. I had to give you props on air for that. So thank you very much. Got my can of WD-40. The chair is good to go.
I just want to tell Jason, I find I'm uncomfortable when I don't have bars of gold sitting next to me. Yeah. And it makes me less productive on the podcast. So I just want to put that in the world.
On tape. Yeah.
Yeah. But what have you been up to?
Well, I've watched a couple things. I just felt like I straight up, I'm going to do an advertisement here, I feel. But I've been going to see more and more of these flashback movies at Regal theaters. They just keep getting better and better, and I'm like more excited about them than any of the new releases lately. I mentioned the last episode that I did saw Dumb and Dumber, which was great, and then we went and saw The Dark Knight, which is incredible, and that's a movie. Just to say in a couple sentences, basically what everybody already knows. We know it's amazing, but when you go to a theater, nothing to distract you. You're literally listening to every word again, which I probably haven't done in many years. Mm-hmm. You're like, wow, this is a good movie. Yeah, this is just it's a magnificent story. It's incredible. And so I really enjoyed that. And then last night, they're doing a bunch of Nolan movies now. They showed Interstellar, which I don't know if I've seen it since the theater. I saw it twice. I remember that. And Federica had not seen it. And so
ever?
No.
Wow.
No. So we went and saw it at the Regal. And when it was over, she's like, "That's my second favorite Nolan movie."
Oh, it's so good. So
good. I had a similar sort of thing. She said halfway through, like, "This is my second favorite Nolan movie behind Dark Knight." And halfway through, I had a thought. I know it's going to sound, whatever, but I don't know that we appreciate Nolan enough. I think I know he is beloved. I know that. And I know
we don't appreciate recent Best Picture and Best Director winner, Christopher Nolan.
I think in some ways people have their go-to critiques of him, like, sure. Yes, no, no one's doing what he's doing, and yes, I love this, and I love Oppenheimer, or whatever, but he's doing the thing he does. But watching Interstellar, I was like, no one's doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a magnificent story that, and he is very lucky that he has the blank check now to be able to make movies like that and have people give him $200 million. And his name automatically means that movie's going to make $750 million. But I just really appreciated that it was this original story. And I don't know, like it's just so rich. I was so lost in it last night, and I like teared up all over again at it. Like, and when it was over, I just felt emotionally exhausted. And I thought, man, I know there's the go-to nitpicks with him, but I think, I don't know, it can't be said enough that it's really exciting what he's doing for movies these days.
Well, I just want to put out there that this year is the 10th anniversary of Interstellar, and I would love the chance to watch it with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I know it's coming back into theaters in September, I want to say, in IMAX. Yeah. Oh man, so good. But I have two more things that I wanted to mention, especially because these are two things you specifically recommended to me.
What?
I know. So I was like, well, I gotta check one of these out someday. He keeps recommending all these movies to me. So I one night was just in the mood for something. It was a little later. I was like, I just wanted like 90 minutes and something I have never seen before. And you recently recommended the movie Enemy Mine to me.
Yeah, and because Lou Gossett Jr. just passed away, and I mentioned that's one of the movies he was in that I enjoyed.
Right. And this Wolfgang Peterson movie, I didn't even know that. To me, that was just a video store cover I remember of these two faces. One sort of a reptilian-looking alien, Dennis Quaid. They look like they don't like each other very much.
Yeah, to me, that's a WFLD Saturday afternoon. And now back to Enemy Mine.
100. That is what this is. 100%. And so I went into it knowing nothing except you weren't just like, you might like that. You were like, that's a good movie. You should watch that. So I was like, let's go. Zaki, I loved it.
Oh, that's great, man.
I loved it. Now this is a surprisingly scrappy movie for its $40 million budget. But man, I was so on board for this. And I think it's important to give, because I'm giving a glowing review to this, but I think it is important to give a little caveat at the beginning that it is, it's pulpy, very pulpy, very of its time. Definitely feels like an 80s movie.
It's an 80s sci-fi movie that's not, one of the top, it's not a Star Wars,
No. And there's like, some synth score that just sort of just felt like definitely of its time. And knowing that it's made by the guy that made The Neverending Story makes a lot of sense when you watch it.
Yeah.
And even some of the execution I found a little rushed, almost like it was a 2-hour movie that they whittled down and kind of skipped a little bit of the tendons between the muscles and just slowed down for the muscle parts. All that said, I feel that is important to note. I totally got into this story. Basically it's about, in the future, humanity is trying to colonize beyond into the universe and taking over these planets. And so it's putting some of these, inhabitants of these other planets on the run and creating this war. And so these two warring races, the humans and these sort of reptile creatures, they don't like each other. And it begins with a space battle. And then two ships get shot down, one human, one reptile alien. And they hate each other. And they try to kill each other. But then they basically realize they're on this barren planet. And if they ever want any hope of getting off of it, they may need each other.
Right.
And so they have to learn to work together, and they learn about one another. And then there's kind of a twist in the middle that you gotta go with. But if you do, and it's pulpy, it's out there, but like what it gives rise to, what it the second half of the story, dude, I was so all in. I got like a little teary eyed, like I was feeling charged up for the ending. Like this is a cool little lost gem from the 80s, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. I looked up, reviews afterwards, and I saw a New York Times reassessment of the movie years later. It said something like, taken in the intended spirit, it's often moving, suggesting what might happen, with mooring people, blah, 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 blah. But basically, I loved taken in the intended spirit.
Yeah, that's like That should be the title. Take it in the intended spirit.
But I was like that. That's how I would lead anything I say about it. Take it in the intended spirit. This is a lovely, fun, emotional, thrilling little movie that I think, if that sounds interesting at all to people, and they're into like, oh, I understand what I'm getting into, something from the 80s or whatever. Wow, you're right. What a little gem. Thanks for throwing this my way.
That's great.
Yeah. And then lastly, from your recommendations, you've said this for years to me because I've been saying, I just want more Terminator content. I've played the video games. I've read some of the novels that extend the universe and to mixed results. And you were like, Sarah Connor Chronicles, the Fox series from 2008. You were saying it's good. It's probably exactly what I'm looking for. And so I started it this past week. Season 1 is only 9 episodes, I think, because of the writer's strike, maybe.
That's right.
And
plus, it was a mid-season replacement too. So,
okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, it only has one more season after this. I think 22 episodes. But I'll admit, like when I started it, it was a little like, oh man, like I think we've gotten so spoiled. I'm gonna say on my end, spoiled with prestige TV looking like movies.
Sure.
And being written like movies. And this definitely feels like a network drama from 2008. And especially in its intensity. And by what I mean by that is it'll have these sort of random, it has the shaky cam thing, which I even hated when it was popular. And also it'll do this, the screen will get a little distorted because stuff's nuts, man. Kind of thing is like an aesthetic choice to, I don't know why. I probably would have hated it then too. Having said that, I watched a couple episodes. Was like,
taken in the spirit it's intended.
Taken in the spirit it's intended. Dude, that's going to become a mantra around here, I think. It took me a minute, but I really wanted to be in this universe again. And then I think it was around episode 3 or so when things really started, the table setting was kind of done and then it kicked into what it was going to be. I was like, oh, well, let's do episode 4. Oh, let's do episode 5. It's 1 a.m.
Wow.
I started doing that. Yeah. And now I'm starting to ration them a little bit because I know I only have a little bit. And I'm not going to say that it's, any sort of perfection or anything, but like it's darn good. I would definitely call it darn good. And it is what I was itching for. Like I wanted more Terminator content. I think inherently this is something we've learned with the movies is the first 2 are so good.
Yeah.
It's almost difficult to know what to do next without repeating yourself.
Right.
Or imitating people. I think that was a big problem. People kept trying to imitate Robert Patrick and no one is Robert Patrick.
Right.
So don't do it. Like do something else. And I think the Summer Glau character, sort of like a teenage girl Terminator character, is so different that it makes it inherently interesting because you can have different. Well, she's a different model, so she behaves a little more like this. And I got to an episode where she's wearing nail polish, and Sarah Connor is like, did you put on nail polish?" And she's like, "Yes." And you're like, I just love that little thing because she's going to school, she's meeting other girls wearing makeup, and like, oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? Like, what's happening inside this? Computer brain. And so like that's fun. That feels different. And that's kind of interesting. So yeah. I didn't love in some of the novels the way that Sarah and John were written. It was very off-brand to my mind. But I would say
feel
here
like the show got closest to the dynamic between them from T2.
Totally. I think so too. I think this is truly probably, as you said, this is the next best thing.
I've been saying that for a little while. At this point, we have now 3 distinct. Here's what happened after the second one.
Yeah,
and the show is probably of those the best take on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not even I think a third through it yet, but I have found its wavelength, and I've calibrated and. As I'm hungry for this, that's what I'll admit. Like I'm just hungry for more of this universe, so I'm enjoying it.
A couple of years ago, like 5 years ago now, I talked to Zach Stentz, who was one of the co-producers on that show, and it was an episode of the Nostalgia Theater podcast where we talked about how the show came about. And one thing he kept saying is like, we knew we didn't have the money, so we couldn't even attempt to play in the same field spectacle wise as the films. So that instead it was like, well, what kind of stories can we tell within this universe that acknowledge the constraints that we're in without pushing up against them too far, you know? And I think that was the right approach.
I agree with that. And I don't mean this as a criticism, but you can tell it has a TV budget at times.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it definitely, you can tell it's thought through, where they're like, what's the best things we can do with that budget? Like, we're not going to pretend like we can put a truck chase through downtown Los Angeles, you know. So they find more, I don't know, like down to earth, but still of this story types of peril and intrigue. And I think they do it well, honestly. Yeah,
I think so. And to the point you were making earlier, I mean, I think it arrived at just kind of this weird period where the zeitgeist was shifting away from network shows. You know what I mean? Like this is like before The Walking Dead, for example. And
yes,
you know what I mean? Like you have to situate your mind back. Well, where this is when linear TV was driving the conversation, where network television was driving the conversation, and we hadn't yet seen the shift to forget streaming. Like cable hadn't even really, that shift hadn't begun yet.
No, I mean you're like Sopranos. Right. I mean, we're talking like the beginning of prestige TV kind of stuff happening probably around this moment.
I mean, you know, during this time, probably Mad Men had just started, Breaking Bad had just started.
Yeah, Lost. And Lost was, you know, revolutionary at the time.
Lost was revolutionary, but it was hampered by the necessities of network television.
True. I just mean in the terms of its visual vocabulary and its pushing network television storytelling.
I mean, the ironic thing about Lost, right, is that had ABC not forced the producers to stretch the thread out so that they could keep the gravy train running, Lost would probably be spoken of with much greater esteem than it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's still spoken of reverently, but maybe it's not something that's returned to as often because it does get a little wheel spinny in the back half.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's spoken of like, oh man, when it started, it lit the joint on fire. And then it's like, shame about the ending or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like, again, and this is just with the benefit of hindsight, you know, something like Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan's like, this is where it's ending. I will tell the story up to this point and not one step further.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mean to be, like I said, not to be too hard on the Sarah Connor Chronicles, but it was definitely, I think when it started, the pilot especially had that real shaky cam, and it kept being like, the screen looked like it was glitching, like, you know, like
it's a little more prevalent in the early goings.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was something I had to fight through a little bit to stick around and decide if I was going to love it. And at the end of the day, yes, I'm interested in these characters. I'm interested in tweaking the story. You know, that's what all the stories are. We keep pushing Judgment Day. It's inevitable. Mm-hmm. So we keep pushing it. So what can we do now? And I'm enjoying where they're at now. So
well, and I want to mention, I mean, Lena Headey is fantastic as Sarah.
She's a good Sarah. It's hard to. I mean, these characters are so iconic. You definitely go through a moment at the beginning where your brain has to make the switch a little bit. Yeah. But I really appreciate her. I really appreciate what she's bringing. I think she is a good interpretation of Sarah Connor.
Well, I mean, I'll just say, given the choice of Game of Thrones alums, I'll take Cersei Lannister over Daenerys Targaryen. It's just.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes. Holy cow, I didn't even think about that. You know, that of all the Terminator movies is the one that I think has most slipped from my mind.
Oh, dude, it's like a sieve.
Yeah, but I sort of I keep like a little running list of the things I want to get to within the next several weeks or months or something, just so I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I had that on my mind. And going back to those movies is one of them. I've watched them once, I've dismissed them all. And part of me wants to go back, maybe just a little desperate, but like I don't expect to have my mind changed, but I do kind of want to see them again.
Yeah.
So at some point I may do that.
Well, we'll be talking through them. I'm fairly certain of that.
Sure.
So it's a coming either way.
How about yourself?
Well, so I think I mentioned this. My second kid, he has his own list of movies he's working through on Vudu, and I'm endlessly fascinated by the list he's curated for himself.
Explain.
Well, it's very eclectic in that you've got everything from Unforgiven to A League of Their Own to Rudy, the football movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for a 15-year-old kid, like I'm just like, man, I'm just fascinated because it's generally it's interesting choices,
Yeah, I'm curious what put some of those movies on his radar, like Unforgiven,
Yeah, and it's stuff he's just kind of working through on his own. So the other day I saw he was watching Clash of the Titans, or he's about to start Clash of the Titans. This is, of course, the famous, it's about the Greek mythology with the Ray Harryhausen effect, and it's from 1982. And I had not seen that in probably 30 years.
And same, they showed it to us in elementary school, maybe?
Yeah, I saw it in junior high. So definitely. And I was like, hey, wait till I'll watch that with you, you know? And so this is a film. It stars Harry Hamlin as Perseus, and you got Laurence Olivier is Zeus, and Burgess Meredith is in there, and
oh wow,
Professor McGonagall from the Harry Potters. Lots of people who I suspect you'd at least somewhat recognize. Anyway, so we started watching this, and this is a fairly beloved movie for people slightly older than us.
Yeah, kind of Gen X-y.
Yes.
Yeah.
It kind of missed me. I'm assuming it kind of missed you.
Just from school. And I kind of remember it as a school movie. It wasn't something that I particularly loved.
Like I got folks in my family who are older than me who I mean, they just swear by it. And I was like, oh, well, what the hell? It's been a while to watch it. So we start watching it, and we get about an hour in, and I'm like, I think this movie might suck. I was like, and I don't want to say anything to him. Like this is I never tip the scale when I'm watching a movie with my kids, because I want them to make up whatever. But in my head, I'm having this monologue with myself. I'm like, does it suck? I think it sucks. Is it bad? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be. Am I supposed to say that? And I'm like, I think the special effects are awesome. They're very retro. I love stop motion. I love watching it. And this is like the last Harryhausen movie. So I'm all in on that side of it. I don't think that's the fault. That's a ding against it. I think the problem is it's not a particularly compelling story. Harry Hamlin, God bless him. He's biding time until he's on LA Law,
Right.
Doesn't feel particularly well cast in the film. And it's very I feel like, man, we're about to get some angry letters. I have a feeling. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't think it's very good. And then after it ended, I was like, in my head, I was like, well, no, that wasn't good. So it's a thumbs down on Clash of the Titans. However, I told my son, I was like, hey, why don't we watch the remake, the 2010 remake directed by Louis Leterrier?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I kid you not, and I saw it when it came out, but I don't have I saw it with that godforsaken 3D post conversion that they did on it.
Oh, that was the 3D days. That's right.
Yeah, and that one in particular, I nearly went blind watching it. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, but I watched it again, and within 10 minutes, I'm like, no, this is better than the previous one. And by the time it ended, I was like, no, objectively to me, it is a stronger film. And I remember when this movie was announced, everybody was having just a collective shit fit. Yeah. How dare you remake Clash of the Titans?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, it's not like there wasn't stuff there to tweak and improve on. And I think by several measures, in terms of just storytelling, it's better in how it tackles the story. I think I think Sam Worthington is Sam Worthington. It's kind of it's like Harry Hamlin, Sam Worthington. It's a net neutral, right? But you've got the newer film. You've got Liam Neeson and Ray Fiennes. You've got Nicholas Hoult and one of his earlier roles, Mads Mikkelsen, etc. And just the whole approach. I think Louis Leterrier figured it out. I think he did a really good job with it, and I think he improved on the original film. And although he didn't direct the sequel, I'm like really excited to watch the sequel this weekend.
Dude, that's great. I mean, see, that's my memory of it too. I remember, opinions were kind of all over the place, but I saw it. See, I'm not a big mythology guy. I should start with that. I think obviously we get a lot of the stories that we tell these days are inspired by these great myths, but I have to admit, when I was taught this stuff in school, I had seen Star Wars first, and if it didn't have lasers in it, it seemed a little dusty to me. And but I remember watching that, in 2010, and being like, yeah, that was fun. Like,
yeah,
good adventure. But I'm not really connected with that material necessarily, so it wasn't like I even know the characters that well. And I'm glad to hear that it holds up. And so, what did your son think? I mean, did he have like a little review between the two, or?
My sense from talking to him is he preferred the newer one. I mean, not to say he was like over the moon about either, but he's 15, and he like that. The whole deal there is just you project apathy over everything. Right?
Sure.
It's like, are you being ironic? I don't even know anymore. He's like at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's at that stage. But me personally, the biggest issue I had with the original film is that the journey that Perseus, the main character, goes on just feels unmotivated. He's literally a clay figure being moved around by the gods. And I'm like, well, God, talk about taking the agency of the character away.
Sure.
Right. And whereas the newer film cracks that by he's the son of a god who as he grows up, he believes he's human, and he resents the gods, and he says humans are better than gods. Well, that's interesting. That gives him a journey to go on, and again, it is reflective of that brief moment where suddenly Sam Worthington was in everything.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's not bad. I don't think Sam Worthington's a bad actor. I just think he is sort of he's kind of like, he fills the space, like he did in Terminator, which I guess you and I will revisit at some point.
We'll get to that, yeah. Man, you're taking me back to a time, because if that was 2010, Avatar was 09, right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
And that was what kicked off that whole 3D thing, really. I mean, right? And then everything, it was offered in 2D and 3D for a really long time.
Yeah, because in 2010 you had the Clash of the Titans remake, and then you had The Last Airbender, both of which had horrific post-converted 3D.
Sure. Yeah. That post-conversion, I forgot about that.
I mean, it's funny because I think they've sort of licked the problem now, and post-converted 3D seems to work okay now. It looks fine. But the gimmick is, I mean, nobody cares about 3D anymore, unless it's Avatar.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I saw that Godzilla X Kong was in 3D at my theater, which I was surprised. I just can't remember the last time I saw that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny too, by the way, I was almost not even going to mention, that time with 3D, because I was thinking that's such recent history everyone remembers, but that was like 15 years ago.
That's right. Yeah, it's a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's funny about Avatar, right? Because I think the last time I saw you, I think Sean was like, "Man, I haven't seen the new one. I don't care to see it, whatever." Right? And and you and I ended up sort of talking about like Avatar is one of these weird things where, as soon as it's out of theaters, it's a little bit like out of sight, out of mind, right? And if that was sort of the ding against like the franchise, right? Before the second one came out, it's like, who remembers it anymore, whatever, right? And then it took watching the second one to make me realize, oh, okay, no, I get this now. This is a thing where I will forget about it, and then like every whatever years, I'll go and I'll just be immersed in this world, and I will just be enveloped by it and luxuriate in it, and then I'll leave the theater and forget about it again.
And honestly, that may be why it keeps making $2 billion.
Yes.
Because it's like the circus, you know, you can't have the circus in your house. Yeah, you got to go to the circus. And so Avatar comes out, you got to go. And if you really love it, you go see it more than once. But that's where it lives and breathes. And I've seen on, you know, YouTube TV, HBO, it's been on and I've flipped to it, but I'm good. Like I just don't want to stick around.
And my recollection is you and I were both quite laudatory about the second film.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I had a good time.
And I in recent months I've started to see those YouTube videos come up again. Who remembers Avatar 2? And I'm like, oh, are we doing this again?
All of us. We were there.
I was like, you don't get it now at this point?
I know.
You know?
Yeah. I will say, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, when everyone was thinking, I don't know, man, like this thing is probably not going to do the numbers the first one did. And James Cameron was like, the only way this thing succeeds is if it becomes the second highest grossing movie of all time. You're like, brother, but and then it does.
Yeah,
like it does. Crazy.
Well, speaking of highly anticipated sequels related to Avatar, did you happen to see Papyrus 2 on Saturday?
Yes, I did.
So that was a great episode. The first Papyrus, this is one of the best episodes they've had in a while. The Ryan Gosling episode, but the first Papyrus sketch, which was like 2017, I think, was. I mean, it is probably one of the single best filmed sketches they've done.
Oh, absolutely.
Like pre-recorded, you know?
Yeah. I mean, across the board, right? You've got an amazing premise. You've got an amazing execution of that premise. You have an amazing actor fully committing to it. You know what I mean? Like every box is ticked for that to be so great.
Yeah, so Gosling hosts again, and I was wondering, I was like, are they going to do another Papyrus thing? And they did. I was ecstatic.
Yeah, but you had to go to YouTube for it. It wasn't during the broadcast episode.
Oh, see, I didn't even see it until later.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't. I think it might have been cut for time, like they had intended.
Yeah, well, you know, that tells you something. They know who butters their bread. They know that the YouTube views are what drive the conversation.
Well, absolutely. That's what I love too, is you can have these cut for time sketches show up on YouTube the next day. And a lot of times, like the one that's become a really popular meme / GIF, whatever, of Bill Hader doing that goofy dance in the sweater. That's from a cut for time. Yeah, that's a cut for time sketch, which is absolutely hilarious. It's amazing. Like to me, it's a classic sketch, and it's funny that it never aired. But that's the benefit of having YouTube, you know?
Right. But that was very funny. And then, of course, the sketch that's getting all the conversation is the Beavis and Butthead one.
Yeah, you texted me before I saw it.
I know. And I almost wish I hadn't ruined. I was just like, did you see the Beavis and Butthead sketch? And I almost wish I hadn't said that.
You didn't ruin it. You definitely didn't ruin it. But I was like, no, but he's texting me about it. There must be something to this one.
Oh, dude.
But, no, you can't spoil the reveal. You know, just the look. And you know what was so funny? You could have given those iterations, like they speak normal, but they have like a like kind of laugh or something and like lean into it. I love that they didn't do that. It's just two dudes that look like Beavis and Butthead. He's got his legs crossed all seriously, trying to listen to the conversation. It was so good.
And obviously, Heidi Gardner, my girlfriend Heidi Gardner.
Yes.
When she just busts out laughing, it was hilarious. No, like the audience was like busting out laughing along with her, but it's also adorable.
Yes, and then she's like holding her hand out, like trying not to look at him.
Trying so hard.
If anyone missed that, I highly recommend looking that up.
And one last thing about television I wanted to put out a recommendation for, and it is Amazon Prime's new Fallout television series.
Yeah, I need to get to this. I want to hear about this. Tell me about it.
So this is based on a very popular video game franchise. I've never played the game, but I was asked to review it for the paper. And my son, my oldest son, is like a fanatic. He's played all the games and everything. So I started watching it, and then he joined in. We ended up watching a lot of it together, and it's just, Brian, this is just a really good show, man. I have you played the game?
No, I haven't.
Honestly, you don't need to have seen it. You don't need to know anything about the game, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Like it's stories in that universe, unlike The Last of Us, which is recreating.
Yeah, so this is
game.
interesting. Yeah. So the Fallout television series is meant to fit canonically with everything in the game so far. So future games would then refer to stuff in the television show, which I think is really cool. You're setting a difficulty bar for yourself, obviously, by doing that. But I think so. The show is created by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, who they also did Westworld. So hopefully this fares better in the long run than that one did.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it sounds like it's pretty well received.
Yeah. That's been nice to see. But Ella Purnell plays the lead character. But honestly, Walton Goggins, he plays this character called the Ghoul, who's essentially a radiation scarred bounty hunter who's been around for hundreds of years. So he predates the nuclear war. So you also see his story from before the inciting incident. And he's like this movie star. And the thing, I mean, I've been a fan of Walton Goggins since The Shield. He's just one of these guys. Like, he's always watchable in everything.
Oh yeah.
Unjustified, he was fantastic. And so this, like, it's a real showcase for him. Kyle MacLachlan's in this. We've been talking about him a lot lately. Just, I don't know, man. It's just a good show. It's 8 episodes. I think you'll breeze through it pretty fast. I have a feeling.
That's great. Well, and obviously I'm on a Jonathan Nolan high at the moment, having, what didn't he like co-write or come up with a story at least of The Dark Knight, and then co-wrote Interstellar. And I was very intrigued by season 1 of Westworld. I fell off of that show, but he and his wife, right, Lisa Joy, are doing this one.
Lisa Joy, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, if you're interested in a quality Jonathan Nolan product, while we're talking about sort of network television, Person of Interest.
I remember that. That's another one you mentioned. You've tried to get me on that train for several years. So
it's the nice thing about that is it's a good show, but it's a network show. So it's within it's a CBS procedural show with a Jonathan Nolan twist.
I mean, that sounds good. And those can be nice sometimes because they're like a little more episodic, right? I mean, there's sort of a case or a mystery.
Yeah, there's plot threads that continue, so you get your B and C stories that carry on. But yeah, your A story is essentially, the big picture plot is Michael Emerson plays a guy who has a device that spits out names, and this is somebody who is either in danger or is going to cause someone else to be in danger. That's all the information you have. And Jim Caviezel plays the lead character, and he has to find this person and basically figure out what's going on.
So it sounds kind of Minority Report-ish.
Yes, but more grounded.
Sure, okay.
And by all accounts, by the way, Michael Emerson is great, but Jim Caviezel was just batshit crazy while making this show. Like I've spoken to people who worked on the show who are like, that guy crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
he thinks he's Jesus kind of thing, However, all of that notwithstanding, the show itself is good, and he's good in it. I mean, it's unfortunate. Jim Caviezel has been in several good movies, so it's unfortunate that he's nuttier than a fruitcake. But
yeah, there was something else recently where I was thinking, oh, I really love this, but I know this guy isn't really a good guy or something. I can't remember. Yeah, it's different for everyone, separating the art from the artist.
Yeah. But I mean, like Caviezel, because Count on Monte Cristo, he was really good in. Frequency, he was really good. I mean, he's been in like legitimately good movies. Anyway, Person of Interest, I suspect you'd like it. Michael Emerson actually is in Fallout also.
Oh, great! I like him.
Yeah. Ben Linus.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I can just like, no, John. His,
You
I
know,
can't tell
Michael
you.
Emerson, Brian, he was the voice of the Joker in the Dark Knight Returns animated movie.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I've watched that.
Oh, dude, you got to watch it. Peter Weller is Batman in that.
From the comic, right? I mean, I assume
It's based on the comic book, The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
You should watch it.
I haven't read that in a while, so that'd be kind of fun to.
Yeah, there's it's like it was released in 2 parts and then they put it together as like a 3-hour movie.
That's
Totally
okay.
Totally worth it. Worth a look. Check it out.
By the way, did you hear where Paramount came out with a bunch of announcements? Oh, I guess it's probably CinemaCon. Sorry, I know we're kind of going into movie news, but did you hear that they're talking about making The Last Ronin, the Ninja Turtles comic, into a film, like an R-rated Ninja Turtles movie?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that comic, by the way. So I would love to see a movie version of that.
I'm down. I feel like Ninja Turtles, there's enough, you know, at this point the spectrum for the fandom is wide enough that you could do that.
Yeah, and I loved the Seth Rogen one that just came out too. So I mean, give me more of those. Give me the Ronins.
Yeah.
Give me all of it.
Hey, why not? You know, it's like Godzilla -1, Godzilla Kong, whatever, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Hopefully, when we were talking about Batman being in the public domain several weeks ago, I'm like, man, I mean, I don't want this like Winnie the Pooh blood and honey crap from Batman.
Right.
But if someone's like, I want to make Cowboy Batman, I want to make, whatever, Day After Tomorrow Batman, like, I want to see that. And I love that maybe there's some handcuffs off and people with, I don't know, the gumption can do something like that.
Although, you know what's fun, what I've noticed specifically with regards to Batman is what Warner Brothers has been doing now, or DC, is they're putting out comics now with Batman looking exactly like he does in Detective Comics 27.
Oh, really?
They're putting out like first appearance Batman merch. And I feel like they're trying to, put some caulk on the crevices. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, kind of smart.
Yeah, right? I was like, well.
Dude, now that I say it, give me 1930s Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Burton leans into that aesthetic a wee bit, with the pinstripe suits and whatnot. But
right.
I'll watch that.
Yeah.
I want it all, Zaki.
Yeah, hey, why not? Right? Pretty soon you'll be able to write it. You never know.
Oh, amazing.
Let's take a short break. We'll come back. We got some listener letters. And we are back, and hey, we got a lot of listener letters regarding our recent commentary track for The Mummy.
Oh, I can't wait to hear these. Yeah, that was really cool, by the way, seeing the feedback online, people saying how much they love that movie, and yeah, that made me really happy. I appreciated people reaching out saying all that.
Here's a note we got from Sean Steiner at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. He says, enjoyed the Mummy commentary and had some thoughts. As somebody who was maybe just a bit younger than the Mummy's range, I was 6 when the Mummy came out and saw it when I was 7 or 8. It scared the crap out of me, but was so much fun when it wasn't that. It's always been that movie I love. I even have a fairly positive memories of the sequel. We'll probably even rewatch it now. And the first Scorpion King, which I haven't seen since the theater. So I don't know if I trust young me's judgment on this. Decidedly less good memories of the third one. Yeah, I don't know anybody who loves the third one. Entirely get the feeling on Scooby-Doo's graphics. That's something you brought up, Brian.
Yeah.
The CGI in there, and how they're worse than remembered, but we'll always have a soft spot for it since it's what made me enjoy movie commentaries, since I probably wouldn't be listening to you fine folks otherwise.
Oh,
that's nice. Also, despite enjoying the Van Helsing we got, I really wish we could have gotten your idea because it sounds pretty good.
Dude, you had a fantastic take on that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
As did the running thread of Rick O'Connell encountering Universal monsters to make the Dark World or whatever it was called. Added to the pile of many great ideas you guys often have, and Hollywood are fools for not listening to. I definitely agree with that. He says, anyways, keep up the fun commentaries and episodes, and maybe revisit Wild Wild West. Please don't. I won't even lie or try to defend it. Well, now I want to.
I've never seen it. I kind of curious. I gotta admit.
In that vein, this is from Ben Atkinson on Twitter, who said, loved your commentary track on The Mummy. Been one of my favorite movies since I saw it in theaters on my 14th birthday. Also, I happen to really enjoy Van Helsing, but I can't fault you for the criticisms you mentioned. There you go. I'm telling you, man. That movie. It was baffling to me then. It's baffling to me now that you would just have Hugh Jackman play essentially another version of Wolverine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't speak to it because I haven't seen it, but I remember it was sort of, you were going with sort of like a professor who rises to the occasion sort of take. And I do remember he was grizzled, had like a long black trench coat.
Yep.
Kind of crossbow sort of look.
Yeah, and David Wenham is like, he plays like his Alfred basically, and he gives him all his gadgets and things. And I'm like, what? Like, why jump through all these hoops, right? I'm not saying that there isn't a good version of that story either. I'm just like, you've got a decent hook already with the character as written in Dracula, and you just say, hey, let's expand this out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's expand his world out. That's interesting,
Yeah.
This is from Matthew Sharif via Facebook. He says, you had me at, I've long considered myself to be the Benny to your Rick O'Connell. And I stand by that, Brian.
Oh,
I will betray you at first opportunity. That's what I mean by that. He says, this is an all-time favorite of mine. I can recite every line in every language, even the prayers Benny says before becoming indentured. Thank you for loving it too. What you said about your hair and how you wanted it to be cool like Odette Fair was adorable. I used to have the same exact feeling about Tommy, the Green Power Ranger. R.I.P., by the way, Jason David Frank. But alas, my curly afro never allowed for me to be cool enough to have a ponytail. One of God's many cruel jokes, I suppose. Thanks, guys. This was a blast. Oh, and I'll never forget being 11 years old and hearing my mom say, he's very handsome in regard to Imhotep. Stay away from my mother, Vosloo.
That's funny.
The love, I've loved seeing the love for the Mummy.
Me too. And I actually, as it was pouring in, even before the episode had really had time to be listened to, I was coming at it just a little bit older and like, yeah, this is a lot of fun. Here's a couple other thoughts I have about it too. And then I was like, oh man, I hope I didn't pee in everybody's Cheerios.
I don't think you did at all. I think we were generally positive about the film,
Yeah, I just had like some thoughts, I think, for like the first half, but then by the second half, I'm like, oh yeah, this thing is a romp. So I'm glad everybody enjoyed it.
It sounds like we may need to reconvene in a couple of years and talk through the sequel. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So I'd be open to that. Here's an email we got from Tyler Kloster. He says, Dear Zaki and Brian, just wanted to drop you a line to say that the MovieFilm podcast remains as enjoyable as ever. I'm enjoying the contributions of people sharing their earliest movie-going experience and wish I had something really noteworthy to share in that regard, but I'm afraid I don't. If you ever open up the topic to most memorable movie-going experiences, then I will have a story for you. Which I think that's what people are doing, right?
Brian? Oh, yeah. I was going to say, open for business. This is what I want to... I actually leaned forward because I love these so much. I'm like, let's go.
He says, until then, I'll just say, growing up in my very small South Dakota hometown on a farm that was over 40 miles away from the nearest movie theater, going to the movies was something I got to do once, maybe twice a year, except for 1984 when I got to see Gremlins, Ghostbusters, Footloose, and Star Trek 3. My parents still made sure I got to see all the movies that really mattered to me, from the Christopher Reeve Superman movies to E.T. to Return of the Jedi, among others, and I couldn't be more grateful. I do have a couple of commentary track requests to toss your way to see if they stir any excitement for you fine gentlemen. And he lists 2010, The Blair Witch Project, which turns 25 this year.
Interesting, yeah. Okay.
And Scream, the original Scream.
We haven't done Scream?
We haven't done the Scream, like that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I love Scream. Yeah, okay.
I was just thinking because I saw a headline about how they're prepping the next one, whatever that is, Scream 7, right?
7, I think, yeah.
How supposedly Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox have like the central roles in that one.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that makes you happy.
Oh yeah. No, these are people who've listened for a long time know we're just not big horror guys. Yeah. But we both love the Scream movies. So
yeah. So I suspect we'll come back to that. And the 30th anniversary of that one is coming up a couple of years. Blair Witch Project is an interesting one. I saw that movie one time in the theater. And I have to admit, the hype clouded my expectations.
See, I was the perfect mark for this movie because what was I, 19? So there's no excuse. I was 19 years old. But this was like, this is,
you were like, it's real. You thought it was fully,
because this is what's amazing. The people who can do the thing first. And then everyone tries to make a viral marketing campaign in the vein of the Blair Witch thing, and it never works the same because you can't be fooled twice. But when that movie, I remember I was visiting my cousin, and we were sleeping over at his place, and we were watching all sorts of movies and stuff. And then on Sci-Fi Channel, they had a little documentary about the kids.
I remember that.
Yes, the kids who disappeared trying to make a movie out in the woods. And it was like what's that Robert Stack? Unsolved Mysteries. It felt like Unsolved Mysteries. And I remember thinking those poor kids, and thinking those poor kids. And also I hope their families are okay with them taking that footage and making something that used as entertainment. That's how I watched the Blair Witch Project. So it was perfect for me, and I was terrified.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we should do a sequel to a commentary to that. Not a sequel. I bet
it's not very long, and I bet we could have a fun discussion about.
Hey, you know what? Suddenly, I'm more interested than I was about 90 seconds ago. So.
I mean, we could talk about found footage. We could talk about the time that this came out. Yeah, and now they're making another Blair Witch sequel, and I've heard that the cast, who really are the filmmakers. I mean, they are filming the movie, and the two directors who led the whole sort of process. I think they're all disappointed that they have nothing to do with it. And
I saw Joshua Leonard really kind of railing at how the company just screwed over the actors.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe we'll save it. I've read things about that, and it's been kind of interesting. And they really were used as little chess pieces on a board, just because to suit the agenda of the type of release they wanted. And I think they did get screwed over quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, it's funny because a lot of 1999 movies. I actually got a message on Twitter from Joseph R, who says, "Love the 1999 love. Wanted to suggest a commentary track for one of my favorite movies, which you may not have seen, but I have seen it. October Sky.
I've seen that because of you.
Oh yeah,
that's another one that you were like, Brian, you got to watch this,
dude. I love that movie so much.
Such a warm movie.
That's the first time I saw Chris Cooper.
Oh,
and I was like, God, this guy's amazing, And then first time for sure, I saw Jake Gyllenhaal, and I remember watching that movie because I wrote in my review at the time. I reviewed it for the COD paper. I was like, this kid is going to go places. Right, and he just from that movie, you're like, he has none of like the tics of like child actors.
Yeah.
And you see it right there. It's funny actually because this past weekend, my oldest son, he went to Alabama for his rocketry team at his high school.
That's so cool that there even is a rocketry team,
right? And there was like a whole NASA thing, and they shot this rocket. It went in the air 4,000 feet.
Wow! They built it. They
built a rocket, just like October Sky.
That's amazing.
And before he went, I was like, "You want to go so bad? Then go!" He's like, "Yeah, I'll go. I won't even come back." And I was like, "All right, we'll get in the car. Let me take you to the airport." The funny thing about that movie is the dad is so pissed at him. He wants to be a rocket scientist. Like that's really,
Yeah.
It's a terrific true story for the if this is I will shout it from the mountaintops. If you have not seen it, you have a good movie waiting for you. It is just a low key family drama that is very sweet, but it's emotional. It checks all the boxes. I would love to talk through that one of these days.
Yeah, kind of those movies, they don't really make those anymore. Those sort of like PG, like Rudy.
Yep.
Remember the Titans. Like, I know these are all sports movies, but that like sort of vibe, that kind of feel, that warm, nostalgic, you're really cheering by the end of the film kind of feeling.
I remember with October Sky specifically, because I like I said, I reviewed it for COD, and that week, it was actually like 2 weeks old, so I'd kind of missed the window. But that week I was supposed to review a movie called 8mm.
Could it be any more different than October Sky?
Well, that's what happened. Is I went and I watched 8mm, and that's for those of you who don't know, it's directed by Joel Schumacher. It stars Nicolas Cage, and it's him going into the seedy underbelly of snuff films and all that stuff. And it was honestly just a horrific experience for me.
Remember when the culture, like for a minute, was like enamored with the idea of a snuff film?
Yes, right. Weird, right?
It was like a weird moment.
Yeah, like Faces of Death and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I watched that movie. I was like, you know what? I'm not reviewing that. I just
Really?
refused. I was like, I'm not reviewing that. I have nothing to say. I have nothing even remotely positive to say about it. I'd rather just put some positivity in the world. I think people, and so I reviewed October Sky instead.
Wow. So what did the publication say?
Well, it was for the COD paper. They gave me the bandwidth to decide my own section. You know.
Okay. But I really admire that. I do. Yeah. I mean, I think even when there's things we don't like, you try to then explain why you don't like it. And movies are so subjective. We're going to encounter a lot of things we don't like. But I love when you find something that you just feel is just like repugnant. It's putting worse into the world rather than better.
That was really how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you're just like, well, then no, I'm not going to put a light on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, cut to 5 years later, I interviewed Joe Johnston, who directed that film, for Hidalgo. And I got to show him my review from the COD paper, be like, hey, this is what I wrote about your movie,
That's so cool. I remember that really vividly. That was such a big, cool moment where you got to interview him.
That was my first big media interview post academia. And Tyler did mention 2010, which celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. Hey, you know what? I really like 2010. I actually think you and I would have a good conversation about that one.
I think so too. I'd like to. I've seen it once.
Yeah,
and I can't say I remember a ton about it. I'd kind of like to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I recently bought the book 2001 because I wanted to read.
Oh, sure. I love that book.
Yeah, and that was one of those interesting things where it was being written parallel to the movie being written, right? Like they were in cahoots with one another. Clark,
they're like it's not like the movie is an adaptation of the book. It's not like the book is an adaptation of the movie. They're both telling the same story, but in different ways.
Yeah, and I really wanted to. So maybe I'll try to read that, and that'd be a fun discussion.
Oh, there we go. To be continued. Let's take another break. We got some trailers. All right. Well, hey, here's some sneak previews of stuff that's coming. Just dropped. One of the most viewed trailers of the year is for Joker, Folie à Deux. Is that how it's pronounced?
I'll ask my wife later.
Oh yeah, I guess we should have done that before we hopped on mic. So this is Joker 2. If I recall, I was like, they're never going to do a Joker 2. But then I said, like 6 years ago, I was like, they're never going to make a Joker.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just consistently wrong. So this is the sequel to the $1 billion plus grossing 2019 movie starring Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar-winning Joaquin Phoenix performance.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Todd Phillips is back. Now this movie this new one cost $200 million.
Outrageous.
Which I can only imagine that means they spent $100 million each on Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. Like how do you spend $200 million on this?
I don't know. I mean, if they're not visiting another planet that has some sort of crazy battle in the sky, honestly, I don't know how you spend $200 million, especially on a movie like this, which seems to be, we've heard it's a musical, right? There's at least 13 songs going to be in this movie. So I imagine it's going to be, what was that movie? Maestro or whatever, where it was like they walk onto a stage and suddenly they're sort of in the middle of a performance, right? Like it's sort of like a musical. Right. As the song happens, they're transported to another place inside the life of that song that they're singing. And I'm sure they'll be very big, but I just can't. I mean, musicals have been made for decades and decades and didn't need to cost $200 million. So I'm very curious.
Well, let's play some of the audio.
Yeah.
We use music to make us whole, to balance the fractures within ourselves.
I'm nobody. I haven't done anything with my life like you have. Let's get out of here.
So, Brian, what were your thoughts on this movie going into the trailer, and how do you feel having seen the trailer?
I'd say they were similar feelings. I actually am kind of interested in this. I've seen a lot of people just ready to kind of dismiss it, and I get it if they didn't like the first one. I remember thinking the first one was fine, but I just didn't. I don't know. Like I was like I recognize it as sort of an aesthetic exercise or something, but I can't say that it really got its hooks in me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious I will watch it again before this, but
For this one,
I can't say I have a great memory of it. But I liked the idea of how gonzo this one sounded. So Lady Gaga, it's a musical. I'm like, that sounds wacky. Like I anything that's out there that's in the mainstream that's wacky, I am interested, because I like to see things that I like to be surprised. And so seeing this trailer, I was like, yeah, no, it's cool seeing Lady Gaga. I think it's interesting how many shots I've seen this isn't my observation, but online, people lining up shots from the first film to the second film, like she's doing gestures and things that he did in the first movie and stuff, and then it ends with that shot, with her putting the lipstick. I want to see the real you.
My favorite part of the trailer, honestly.
I was like, I'm in.
That's see, my thought is, in terms of the first film, I remember enjoying it, but it's not something I felt compelled to revisit ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told Amina, oh, you should watch it. You'd probably like it, but I didn't watch it with her because I was like, once is enough for me. That was me.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of Joaquin Phoenix's performance, I wonder if it'll be kind of a Jack Sparrow situation, where that first Pirates movie, Johnny Depp was so revelatory, he got an Oscar nomination out of it. And then you keep going. At least me, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this character, I
mean, yeah, whatever this is about is going to be really important. Like, just aesthetics and bombast won't be enough for, I don't know, maybe if it's really, but I really, that's the tricky part of the first one, I think, and something I might have bumped up against. Like, I have a hard time following unpleasant characters as our quote unquote protagonists.
Yes.
Like, I don't enjoy watching them murder and then thinking, I really actually kind of want them to get caught,
right.
Like your taxi drivers, which again, I like it enough. I can recognize why it's a classic, and I've seen it maybe twice or something, but like, it's not something I go back to, or it's, it's not a story that I super jive with or something. And so I think I had the same feeling with Joker, where it's just kind of an unpleasant feeling you have watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also recognize that, it's well done or whatever. So anyway, This one, I hope there's some sort of arc involved, and I'm not just witnessing a bunch of different stuff and unpleasantness for 2 hours, if that makes any sense. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I just hope there's something for him to do and something with her. And by the end of it, I hope to feel something. And if I do, then it's a success.
Well, there we go. So that one is due out October of this year. Now, the Batman sequel was supposed to come out in October of next year, but that has been kicked down the curb to 2026.
Yeah,
that's like a crazy long gap between movie 1 and movie 2.
It's a long gap, and there's a lot of stuff happening over at DC. It seems, for as much effort as they've made to have a clean slate for what they're starting up with the new Superman film, it does feel like this is like a weird dangling thread almost, because they do have plans for
Joker and the Batman.
Touche. You're right. Yeah, these, and they aren't even related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curious. Very curious.
I hope it's good. I hope Joker's good. I'm fascinated at that budget, and I'm questioning the metrics of how you make a movie like this successful. Because I don't think you can count on another $1 billion plus movie.
No. Could it happen? Maybe. But count on it? I don't know. It's a lot of things have changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, here's another trailer that in terms of what they can count on, I'm curious. I'm definitely curious. This is just dropped earlier today. Transformers 1. Let's play some of the audio first.
I know we're just lowly worker bots who can't even transform. Don't you want to see what's out there? There's a reason no one goes to the surface. It's dangerous. Why'd you bring jetpacks? If we survive this, I'm gonna kill you! I accept those terms.
Okay, so this is, you know, what Paramount is trying to do with Transformers. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier with the Ninja Turtles, like cast their lot in different directions. You know,
I have already forgotten there was a film, because I was just thinking I liked Bumblebee, and I am surprised they haven't. I was surprised that they hadn't done something since, and then I just realized that they did. Was that
which you didn't watch?
I did.
You didn't
not.
watch, right?
I did.
Rise of the Beasts.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I did watch it. I was desperate for you to see it so we could do our usual Transformers review, and you took that away from me.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I just missed it. Yep.
So, well, what I'll say about Rise of the Beasts, I did not hate that movie, but if you put a gun to my head, I could not tell you what it's about. Except it involves beasts rising. And it ends with like and by the way, G.I. Joe, there's like a tease for a G.I. Joe Transformers movie.
That's right.
Which they announced that at CinemaCon, like coming up, we got G.I. Joe and Transformers. And bear in mind, Brian, you know me, I love G.I. Joe. I love it. I was like, I don't think that announcement carries the weight you think it does. Right?
Well, I mean, the last two movies, I actually don't know how successful they were, but I can't say they really hit culturally.
Right.
I don't know. I liked G.I. Joe totally as something that was on probably before He-Man. You know, I was really like more of a He-Man guy.
Yeah.
But I know the aesthetic of G.I. Joe has changed a lot throughout the years. You know, the 60s toy, the comics, what it was that I remember in the 80s where they were using laser guns and things like that. I don't know. I feel like you almost need to go there and to make it stand apart a little bit more. Right?
Yeah.
If you just have Channing Tatum and The Rock and, Camo in the desert, it doesn't necessarily feel special.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I don't know. You're a bigger fan than I am, so I don't know what's the juice? What's the ingredient here that you would give to make this the thing that you would show up with excitement?
I don't know, because at least with regards to G.I. Joe, for me, the Rosetta Stone for me is the original Marvel Comics run from the 80s and 90s by Larry Hama, which is, by the way, still, that run is still continuing from a different company, but Larry Hama is still writing that book.
Wow.
In the year of our Lord 2024. And it's, it's up to issue 300 something. And I've always loved it. And I loved it because it was like a superhero comic, but it was slightly more grounded, and you cared about the various character dynamics. For me, the second film, the one with The Rock and the one with Bruce Willis, actually came closest to capturing that vibe, even if that movie didn't particularly play. And so I'm kind of like, well, I don't know what you do to make this blow up with a wider audience. It may just be destined to not, I
feel like I was saying that about something recently. I don't remember which movie it was, but I was like, maybe it's okay to not spend over 100 Ghostbusters. Yeah. And spend like 100 million or less, more like it, and no, you know what? Yeah. These aren't going to make $1 billion. That's okay. Like find the metric that gets you a profit and make these for the people who are going to continue to show up for them.
Who are going to show up.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, what did you think of the Transformers 1 trailer?
I was a little taken aback by it. I'm going to be honest. I saw that it's by the director of Toy Story 4, which makes some of the jokes make sense. I was not expecting what feels like When you were about to say something, go ahead and finish it.
It felt offensively kiddie to me.
Well, is that offensive?
I think, I mean, offensive for me as just like a fan of the property, because I'm like, it's never needed to be that kiddie to attract the kids.
It goes to that sort of, I would almost call it more like DreamWorks humor, right?
Yes,
Kind of the. I don't know, yeah, but it's where someone like the team like nothing can shake us. We're gonna take this down no matter what, and then the monster reveals itself, and one guy just like runs away, kind of, which it's. I will admit that I was like, oh, that'll gag, and I kind of with a little grin, but it doesn't look like it's for me. It looks like this is decidedly for kids.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, who is this for? Who is this for?
You know what though? This is where it gets so tricky. I think we've talked about this on the show before. We are so lucky we grew up in a time where we had The Goonies. We had like these sort of movies squarely aimed at like 10-year-old us.
Yeah.
Like those are really formative for us. We still talk about them. I've told you, I've been in pitch meetings. I don't think I've been in one pitch meeting. This is not an exaggeration where The Goonies has not come up. And because it hit a certain generation a certain way. And I hate to if we're going to have like an R-rated Ninja Turtles movie, I think we should certainly still have a PG-rated Ninja Turtles movie. And so, I mean, if they are going to make the live action Transformers movie be that sort of more four quadrant-y, lean a little bit more adult, kind of thing, maybe there's something to having this animated version to get the kids hooked on the property and then bring them into that, so long as they aren't leaving you out. You know what I mean? I hope they continue making those films. This is easy for me to say because I like Transformers enough, like I'm not like a diehard Transformers guy. So
yeah,
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, I mean, it's so this is Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry. They're young Optimus Prime and young Megatron, or their names or something else. Orion Pax and whatever. D16, I think that's his name. And so we're like, oh, see, they're friends, and then they're going to become enemies later, right? So to me, I'm like, the tone is very jarring given that.
Yeah.
Given that bit of business, because it's like, well, Megatron has to become like a bad guy.
Right.
And so I don't know how you do this very, again, is extremely kiddie thing, and then do this thing at the end where you're like, oh, and by the way, he's a villain now. Because I'm like, kids aren't stupid. Like, you don't have to pander in such an egregious way.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that Scarlett Johansson was in this too. I was like, I know that voice. and then I was like, oh man, I mean, it's John Hamm, Steve Buscemi, Keegan-Michael Key. I mean, it's pretty
Keegan you can recognize like in
immediately.
2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Whenever a CG animated movie is in production, Keegan will be there.
You know what though? God bless him. Like I love him.
Hey, make that money, dude. Look, the amount of money these movies spend for voiceover talent. Hey, I don't fault any actor for doing this stuff. Why the hell not?
I was thinking that with Chris Hemsworth. I was like, this is the easiest gig in the world, man. You don't say no to this.
He shows up, he does his Captain Kirk voice, basically, and he does his thing. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm definitely like, well, it not aimed at me in the least. But I draw the corollary. I'm like, well, who's it aimed at?
Probably 11-year-olds.
I suppose. So I'll take my kids as an experiment and see how they walk out of it.
Actually, I look forward to that. I'm very curious. I'm weirdly in the corner for that. I think I did not expect when I saw the trailer this morning. That wasn't even the thought in my head. But now that we're talking about it,
but Brian, here's the thing, right? If the Spider-Verse movies have shown anything, it's like you don't have to talk down to kids.
Well, but is it talking down to?
I consider it talking down.
Yeah. Well, it depends to me. I mean, if it's, I don't know. I was going to say poo poo pee pee humor, but I like poo poo pee pee humor. So I
think we got poo poo pee pee humor in the Michael Bay movie, so it's not like the bar has been set.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't want to forget a certain subset of audience that you want to get to love movies.
Here's a thought, and maybe the comparison is not entirely apt, but I think of like the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series,
Yes.
right? Which has been this vehicle to introduce and literally an entire generation of kids to the Star Wars saga.
It's true. That's true.
And one thing I encountered this morning where I talk people who talk to me about watching that show with their kids now, and you watch all of Clone Wars, which by the way you've seen enough of. It's not dumbed down,
Right.
but it's welcoming of kids.
Yeah.
But you know what you do? You go straight from Clone Wars into Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
And boy, you are about to inflict some trauma on them kids.
Sure.
And it's great. I mean, that's my point. Kids can take it.
I don't disagree with that because we saw some intense things when we were kids.
That's right.
And now we look back on them lovingly. But I still do stand by. I think it's okay sometimes to have something that is aimed a little younger.
That's fair.
Not dumber.
I guess.
Not dumber. Younger. And I do mean that. Like I think that's why you look at. Look at Toy Story and all that. I mean, that's rated G.
Yeah.
But it's not dumb. It's brilliant.
That's true.
But
before we move on, I did wanted to discuss one headline of note. Like, how could we not discuss this?
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson has passed away.
Yeah.
Exactly a week ago as we are recording this.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That was weird. You texted me that, and I think I wrote back to you. I don't know if this sounds weird, but it feels like the end of an era.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird sort of way, I'd almost forgotten he was alive. And man, that is just, if you were there in 94, 95, like that was something you're going to remember for the rest of your life. I mean,
it's literally 30 years ago now, right? That's when the killings happened.
Yeah. And, right? and maybe it was especially like my age where I was becoming old enough to really sort of pay attention to the news and the satire of the news and, drink in that stuff more than I had things a couple years earlier. But we were swimming in it, that story. Yeah. I mean, it was everywhere.
Well, I've been talking about it with my students in the last couple days, and I've been trying to explain the totality, so to speak, and it's a very appropriate because that's how the eclipse, that was the totality, right?
Yeah.
That was O.J. Simpson in terms of how it eclipsed every aspect of life. Like everyone had an opinion on it.
Oh, you could not escape it. You could not.
You couldn't. And part of the reason for that is who O.J. Simpson was. And I don't think we can fully grasp right now in 2024 who he was in, like right now 30 years ago before the murders.
Definitely. Yeah.
Where, like, I was talking about this with my students. I was like, imagine if Tom Brady was accused of killing his wife. And I was like, no, imagine if Tom Brady, having been a successful athlete, then became a successful movie star.
Mm-hmm.
And he was beloved in a way that even Tom Brady isn't. That was O.J. Simpson.
Yep.
And I don't think we have celebrity like that anymore.
That's definitely part of it. Yeah.
Right. And so at that moment, again, you and I, we were in, it was like our freshman. Well, you were in junior high. I was a freshman.
Yeah. I might've been going into high school, 94. Yeah.
So, I mean, we were relatively young is my point. And yet I don't know. I can't speak for you on this, but I was like fully plugged in. I remember watching the slow speed chase with the Bronco when it happened.
I was going to say there were so many components to this that are just, you can't make them up. I remember watching the NBA finals. I've said this before, but we were watching the finals on TV, and then there was a little window in the top right corner. Oh, OJ's running. Like he's in a Bronco.
No. They put the game. They put the game in the subscreen.
That's what I mean. So it started at the top, and you're like, "What's the deal? OJ's fleeing," and then all of a sudden, OJ became the entire screen, and the NBA Finals moved to the tiny little.
Which, if that ain't a metaphor for something, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but he was like, OJ, suspect for this murder, but then all of a sudden, now he has a gun to his head in the back of a car and is fleeing to Mexico.
Yep.
Like there, and then you've got all the characters, Kato Kalin, and the glove. I mean, if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. It never stopped. It just kept generating fodder, which is horrible to say because you just feel like this is a murder trial.
Two people were killed.
Yes. But it turned into an absolute circus.
I mean, we've talked about this before, the dancing Itos on the Tonight Show, which if that's not just the most perfect summation of the circus atmosphere surrounding this thing. I mean, that's like something out of Idiocracy.
I was going to say, I look, did I laugh when I was like 13 at the absurdity of it? Maybe, probably, I don't remember. But like if you were to make a highlight reel of the worst of humanity in the past 30 some years.
But I mean, let's think about this for a second. First of all, there are people who are tangentially connected to that trial whose names still exist in my brain pan. Dennis Fung and Barry Sheck and, Chris Darden, all these people. Like, why do I remember these names, right? That's number one.
Yeah. Well, just real fast, I want to say I went out to dinner with Federica to this jazz club. And Kato Kalin was seated like 2 tables over. And I was like, holy crap, that's Kato Kalin. Like, that's him. He's the guy. It's like he's a celebrity.
And think about this. Back in the day, Kato Kalin made an adult movie.
Did he really?
After the OJ. In other words, the OJ notoriety, for those of you who don't know, Kato Kalin lived in OJ's pool house or something.
Yeah.
And he made an adult movie. Faye Resnick, who was friends with Nicole Brown, posed in Playboy.
Wild.
It's freaking weird, right?
Yeah.
And it's unless you lived through it, you can't encapsulate the absolute utter weirdness of all of this maelstrom. And yeah, there was O.J. Simpson right at the center of it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's an extraordinary story. I think you and I were texting earlier this week about, there's like now all these Norm Macdonald jokes are making the rounds again.
Yeah.
And Norm famously just made sport of O.J. every week while the trial was going on. The week that the not guilty verdict was announced, famously, they come into Weekend Update on SNL, and Norm Macdonald's like, well, it's official, murder is legal in the state of California.
Yep.
And he was absolutely merciless, but it was hilarious. But that's what got Norm canned from Saturday Night Live by Don Ohlmeyer, right? And I was thinking about Don Ohlmeyer, who fired Norm. He passed away a few years ago. Norm is gone now. O.J. Simpson is gone. And I'm like, like the sands of time, eventually there will be nothing left to mark our passing,
Yep. This will be some obscure footnote in like a historical, novel or something 100 years from now that someone will go, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Books, and they're like, oh yeah, in 1880, this guy was pretty notorious. You're like, oh, okay. I don't know who that is.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think what you said is very apt. I mean, it's the passing of an era. It's an era that we lived through, we experienced. No one else will ever understand it.
Yeah. And I do want to shout out that there is that documentary OJ Made in America.
Oh, so good. I just purchased it actually. And after his passing, I was like, I need to watch that again.
I'm almost tempted. It's weird.
It's a long one.
Know why I'm drawn to it, but like it's it's comprehensive, very, very, very good. It does an excellent job of, even for me, because I wasn't really there at the height of his sports, notoriety. And so it really sets up his rise to fame, how he was seen, how he became the Hertz rental, spokesperson, like truly who he was to adults, at least at that time when this happened. And it's very comprehensive, never a dull moment. It's very, very well done.
Yeah. And of course the dramatized miniseries, The People versus O.J. Simpson. It's also very good.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Cuba Gooding, yeah. Well, hey, let's take a short break and we can talk about the latest release that's at the top of the charts right now. And we are back, and what else is back, Brian?
What's that, Zaki?
Why, it's the notion of the United States being split asunder by ideological differences.
There we go. You're right. Was I sensing a little like, I gotta find one. You'd never know it. You'd never know it.
Yeah, so Civil War is out right now. It's written and directed by Alex Garland. It is sitting atop the box office with a pretty decent opening for an A24 release.
I think their biggest opening, right?
Best ever opening. And it has a B- cinema score, which is also like one of their best cinema scores.
That's funny.
That's for A24. So this is a movie. I have seen it. Have you seen it?
I have.
Well, what are your thoughts on Civil War?
I did not know what to expect with this movie. Obviously, the marketing was very provocative, right? The poster is snipers atop the torch in the Statue of Liberty's hands. And I saw it after opening weekend, and I was hearing that people were disappointed it wasn't the movie they thought it was going to be, which is, look, I mean, in the year of our Lord 2024, there's a little division in this country.
Yeah, a little bit.
Division. There's people on this side, there's people on that side, and things have gotten so heated in the past handful of years that people have wondered, could there be?
Well, there's a former president on trial as we record this.
Yes.
That tells you something.
And there's been a lot of heated feeling and divisions drawn in the past couple of years, and so this movie looked like it could be a sort of, well, what if 5 years from now, will there be a second Civil War in America? Like, will there literally be a line drawn in the sand and I'm on this side, you're on that side, and we actually have war on American soil again against one another? And that's kind of not what this movie is. And I was hearing that people were disappointed about that. They were walking out thinking they didn't get the movie they showed up for, like a what if, almost Twilight Zone-y. Well, what if where we're at now escalates into this second Civil War? And this movie's about journalists. Yeah. This movie's not about a civil war in America. I mean, it is. But that's kind of the backdrop. And I bet some people thought they were going to see 2024's Red Dawn.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Right. I mean, Red Dawn in the Cold War, and everyone's sort of feeling scared of Russia. And then that movie taps into the deepest fears. Like, what if Russian paratroopers landed on my high school lawn and started shooting my teachers, And I think people were sort of thinking this might be some sort of thought experiment about what a civil war in America would look like, stemming from our news today. But this is like, I think it's intentionally obscured or complicated in such a way where it's like, well, Texas and California are in an alliance is something we learn in this movie, which doesn't seem like something that might happen on our current timeline and whatnot. And so immediately I was like, oh, so this is a movie about war journalists. And halfway through, I was like, this movie could take place on Mars. It doesn't matter. But then I thought what I do kind of appreciate it though is if you were to say we're going to make a movie about war journalists, what do you immediately picture? I'm going to be honest. I picture the desert. You know what I mean? Or sure. I picture the jungle, like Vietnam, like things that we sort of know. And this is, well, let's change that a little bit and let's put it in a terrain that maybe you don't feel could ever happen, but what if it did?
Right.
Like, how would you feel? Like, this is really about a leader is about to be overthrown, and these journalists want to get there to that leader before that happens. And you could have the version that takes place in some sort of like made up, Middle Eastern country or some made up like Vietnam allegory or something like that. But this is like, no, like let's put it in your backyard. Like, how do you feel about that a little bit is kind of the sense I got. And it plays different with that sort of iconography and recognizing a street that looks like I could have grown up on. And, and so I found it interesting in those choices. Actually, I'm kind of curious what you think about that before I go even further.
Yeah. Well, I think that as a storytelling approach, I applaud Garland's drive where by virtue of situating us within settings that are ostensibly familiar, it'll prompt a different kind of reaction. There's a scene where they're in a town where they're like, God, it's like, do they not know there's a war going on?
Mm-hmm.
And it's eerily calm. And then, the camera just kind of, the shot widens a little bit and we see snipers on the rooftops.
Right.
And I love stuff like that. I think for me, what stuck with me is certain scenes.
Yes.
But my reaction I had when I left the theater is something that stayed with me, which is I don't think you can. Let me put it this way. I think in some ways Garland is trying to come off more clever than he is.
Okay.
Because I think that when you present this scenario, his whole thing is like, well, I'm leaving it vague and you guys have to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, well, I applaud that and I can appreciate that. But I think that given what you're presenting us, we need some kind of context. Just to at least for me, because I'm kind of like, well, how did we end up here? I mean, we have to know this. And if our lead characters are journalists, that almost feels more important, because there's a sense of like, my characters, they're just observing what's happening. And, it's sort of like what we say, journalists aren't supposed to take sides. They just say things as it is. And it's like, well, that's not entirely true. I mean, journalists tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what that is. And I think when we're going through an entire film and we really have no sense of who's who and what side is which, and the without spoiling anything, when the movie ends, it ends at a particular moment. I'm kind of like, this makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right. But the film, I'm not sure what the film wants me to feel.
So cutting to the chase, I walked away feeling positive about this, but with something, it's not something I just go, oh yeah, I liked it, thumbs up. It's just kind of a movie I want to talk about.
That's exactly where I am. Cause I was talking about it with Hamza afterwards and we were both like, well, what about this? And we were both, we said the same thing. I was never bored.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so ultimately I'm like, well, if I was never bored, then it engaged me. And I still feel that way. I questioned some of Garland's choices, but I think just as an experience, as something that immerses you, it's hard to fault. I mean, there's again, it's been 3 days now since I've seen it, but like the stuff that stays with. There's a scene where Wagner Moura, who plays the male journalist, you just see him screaming, but you can't hear him, and that's like one of the most powerful images in this whole movie.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, with the tanks rolling behind them.
Yeah, that to me is like, that stayed with me. So that's something.
Oh, 100%. And by the way, I was like, when he was introduced, I was like, I'm not sure if I know this guy, but I like him. Why do I like this guy? And then I remember, oh, he's from Narcos. He was Pablo Escobar. And
I was like, I haven't seen Narcos, but I was like, I get like Pedro Pascal energy off this guy. So
I love him. He's so good in Narcos. I love seeing him in this. And now I'm like, oh, okay. Like if I could write a letter to Hollywood, I'd be like, more, please.
Yeah,
like,
he was great.
He's very interesting, charismatic guy. But yes, so yeah, I walked away. That's exactly what happened. I had the same experience. I saw this with Chad, and we immediately, we sat in our seats and talked. We walked to the car and talked. We like, it just provokes a lot of conversation. And I think at the end of the day, this really just is about the futility of war.
Sure.
War is confusing. It's foolish. It's horrible. And you're seeing it through the people who are supposed to be recording it for us. And so we're introduced.
And like what toll does this take on them?
Yeah. And how important it is that they be there. And also surprising how in the middle of the action they are.
Right.
I mean, I was shocked. I assume that's somewhat accurate, but I mean, literally with soldiers who are firing against their enemy, they are within the line of soldiers firing their weapons. I found that nuts.
Right.
And so you go through these series of vignettes that basically, you begin with what's her name? Kaylee. Kaylee Spiney.
Kaylee Spaney, yeah.
Spaney, who was in Priscilla, and I thought she was amazing in that. She's sort of the newcomer. She wants to do this, and she gets embedded with this old pro, played by Kirsten Dunst. And it's sort of Kirsten's sort of seen it all, maybe a little jaded because she's been doing this for so long, and war still happens, and it's like, is what I'm recording getting to anyone, or is it ever going to prevent something like this, right? And Spaney's character is basically like, doesn't she say something like, would you shoot a dead body or something at the beginning? And then, of course,
Right.
that's just like how naive she is at the beginning. And then over the course of things that happen, she encounters hell. I mean, like hell on earth. And it molds her. Like, who is she going to become?
Mm-hmm.
Is she going to become like that? That to me, that was the journey of this movie. Like, what? It's funny. When it was over, I thought, if I had to sort of do it's this meets that, as weird as this sounds, and Chad, he didn't give me a reaction, so I don't know if he agrees. I was like, this feels like Children of Men meets a Sofia Coppola movie.
Interesting. Well, I can definitely go with you on the Children of Men part.
Well, there's just a lot of vibes.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Versus like sort of story per se.
I guess here's my, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But I think this is the conundrum. I feel I'm like, I think other than sort of the storytelling hook of, oh, there's a civil war in the United States, Garland doesn't delve into it. And then to me, he uses his, well, I need you to make up your own mind. That feels like an excuse to me to not delve into it. And I'm like, I don't need like a voiceover prologue explaining how we got here. But if you tell me that Texas and California have seceded from the United States and are in an alliance, I'm sorry, but I need something to explain how that happened, because that doesn't, based on life as we know it right now, that doesn't make any sense, right?
See, I understand that, but I guess for me it just didn't matter, because I was like, this is science fiction. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it is provocative and maybe slightly irresponsible to take partial real world things and then twist it into complete fiction.
Right. Because
it is very provocative, especially the second half of this movie, the images you see. And like you said, they make you very uncomfortable. But to me, it was more like, this could have taken place anywhere. He just decided to use something that might make that hair on your neck.
So well, do we want to talk spoilers?
Yeah, I think that's good. Oh, but by the way, I'll say this one thing before the spoilers. I loved the filmmaking in this movie. Yes. I think it's beautifully photographed, and it's not pretentious. I thought it was just a really well executed.
Oh, I totally agree.
And I, during the end, sort of action stuff, I was like, I kind of want him to make a Batman movie.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
I don't know why that's the first thing that came to mind. Maybe it was sort of Nolan-esque in a way, and that's just what I lean toward. But and also the sound design in this movie is nuts,
dude. Amazing. I mean, every gunshot is the audio is ramped up to this degree where you feel like it's firing past your ear.
Yeah, like sometimes you watch movies like John Wick, it makes violence beautiful. Even war movies may accidentally sometimes make war beautiful. And this is like, every time a gun goes off, you wish it would stop.
Yes.
Which I think was the purpose and
intentionally
effective. Okay, yeah, let's do spoilers.
Spoilers.
So the entire third act, but when our lead characters get to the remnants of Washington D.C. and the way that whole sequence is filmed, it was so effectively staged. We get these great overhead shots of everything happening, and as the Western front forces move their way into the White House, to your point, like that might as well be Saddam Hussein's palace.
Exactly.
Right. Now that being said, and by the way, when Wagner Moura goes to Nick Offerman, he's like, I need a quote. It's talk about like a perfect way of buttoning that whole journey, right?
Yeah. I want you to keep going with that thought, but that reminded me of something else that I sort of wondered.
So he says, the quote is, "Don't let them kill me," right?
Yeah.
He says that'll do. I think again, so right there they come in, they shoot him, and yeah, to your point, yeah, if we were watching this play out in Iraq or some sub-Saharan country or whatever, it's just business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
So the shock of it is, oh, this is happening in the United States. But again, I keep, there's this part of me that kept pricking me where I'm like, how do we get here? And I fully admit maybe I'm asking the wrong question.
But you know what? For me, I don't need that, but I don't think you're wrong to feel that way, because the movie is inviting that. Absolutely inviting that. I mean, the Nick Offerman playing the president is speaking occasionally like Trump-like.
Exactly. I mean,
You know
he's
what I mean?
clearly a Trump adjacent figure, if nothing else.
I mean, Garland is clearly trying to bait you in those sort of ways.
And I think that's that. So then when you say this is the Western Front, like I'm fully on board with the journey as presented in the film, because like I said, I'm enmeshed in it, but I'm also just in a practical level. I'm like, how does that even work? Like, I mean, this notion that people have of like, oh, we had another civil war. It's like, well, our country's economy is such that it couldn't allow for something like that to happen.
Sure.
It's so enmeshed and intertwined. I mean, this is not, the 1700s, or 1800s, excuse me. But regardless of all of that, again, I think to the point, it pulls you in. Oh, by the way, here's a thought I had. And I'd be curious what if you had a similar reaction when they're in the dress shop.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaylee Spaney takes the picture of Kirsten Dunst. She's like, "You're pretty when you smile," or whatever, and she smiles. And I was like, "Okay, Kirsten Dunst is going to die at the end, and
Dude,
she'll like look at that picture of her." And so I was waiting for her to die, but I was like, "Wait, she didn't look at the picture."
That's, it's funny. I knew she was going to die in the first act when she said, because she was so naive and like, and Kirsten Dunst was like, "Of course I'd take a picture of the body."
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, Kaylee is going to take a picture of her dead body.
See, you beat me to it. That means
I don't know why. It immediately I was like, oh, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, okay, that's where we're headed. And I was like, that dumbass. Like, it's funny because Hamza's like, she's so stupid. Why did she say she got her killed? She got Kirsten Dunst.
That was hard. That was hard to watch. I mean, it's coming in a way, but
right.
Yeah, that was so this is. If I'm gonna then try to expand on my thing, where I'm like, I guess the history of that world, I can not really think about that, because I'm like, okay, I'm just with these characters. They're going through a war hellscape, and they are changing along the way. I kind of wish we had gotten a little bit more of a sense of what their work was accomplishing, or not accomplishing.
Right.
I found it fascinating that they were taking these pictures but not sending them anywhere. And they're taking pictures on film. And I was like, is that the most efficient? Like, I mean, you could take digital pictures and upload them immediately. And I mean, we're in spoilers now. They take a picture of the president dead in the White House.
Right.
And are you going to wait 3 days, develop it and send it, via FedEx? And, like 3 days later, people are going to see that. Like, no, that picture is going on the internet tonight.
Right.
And so I guess to me, this movie is really just about journalism. I wanted to know a little bit more about what this movie, it's very objective. I guess as objective as the journalists are through this story, the movie's kind of weirdly, we're just observing journalists doing their thing. And it's not even giving us the movie's feelings about that.
Yes. So if I can just pull on a thread that you left there, right?
Yep.
I think as a concept, I'm fully on board with that. I definitely think we needed more about what media apparatus are they operating within.
That's a very good point. Well, he says Reuters at one point, whatever that's worth. I mean, who knows?
He says Reuters, so that's an international news organization.
Yeah.
But Steve McKinley Henderson, he works for the New York Times.
Right. Oh, and he says what's left of it.
The
character says what's left of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So something exists, but I'm like, well, the movie doesn't get into how long this war has been going on, but I mean, you know what I mean? And again, I realize I'm talking past myself a little bit, because, well, that's not the filmmaker's intent. However, you're asking us to go along with the journalists on this journey. And I would say, well, if there is no journalistic apparatus as we know it, then is it a fool's errand what they're doing? We should have that bit of context to be able to judge what they're doing.
and I know this isn't the movie, so I wouldn't even pitch this to Garland, but it does. You made me think then. You almost want to see, well, what's the effect of that picture that they risked their lives for? What's the effect of that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, because I mean, you drew the comparison to Children of Men. One thing you can say about Children of Men, for as on the ground immediate it is, you have a clear sense of the world that we're in.
True.
And I feel like Garland, by virtue of him being like, he's so hands off as to be, again, a little too clever by half, by being like, no, you make up your own mind. It's like, no, your job as a storyteller is to nudge us a little bit this way or that, and then let us make up our mind.
Yeah.
It's like you're giving us, 5 dots of pointillism, being like, hey, what is this? It's like, well, we need a little bit more, and that's not in any way diminishing what I think is, again, a very effective film insofar as it puts you on the scene. I mean, and I'm assuming you and I had the same reaction to the Jesse Plemons scene.
The trailer does not do justice to how terrifying that scene is.
Yeah, exactly.
That
because I talk all the time, Brian, about it's a movie that makes you say, well, who am I? What would you do? Well, I'm acutely thinking about that.
Now I'm so sorry, I forgot his name. I was going to say Pablo Escobar.
But Mora.
Yes, when he says that he's from Florida, was that a gamble? Thinking that state would resonate with him?
I was thinking about that because he like stalled.
Yes, and because it seems like we know everyone else was telling the truth, and I was wondering because he stalls for a hair, and I thought, was that him rolling the dice like, this may not get me shot?
Right. I had that exact thought.
Yeah, that was dude, that scene alone. I mean,
oh my gosh. Well, first of all, when those 2 guys get shot one after the other, number one. But then when she's on the pile of bodies,
yes,
holy freaking yikes!
Yeah, that, and I mean, the bodies was awful, but I truly having him holding the gun at those guys as he's talking to them and not liking their answer and just boom, it was. It's so funny. You watch like Die Hard and you're like, get them all, with the gun, and then you watch something in a different context and you're like, this is the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And immediately after, when Stephen McKinley Henderson's character dies and you're sort of getting his point of view as he's seeing the sparks and you're seeing the, incredibly powerful again. And right after that is the scene where Wagner Moore is just screaming and we don't hear anything. I mean, that really, that stayed with me, I think Garland is one of these directors. I'll always be interested in what he has to make.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say I've loved everything he's done. I haven't seen Men, to be fair, but Ex Machina, I liked it. I wasn't in love with it like a lot of people.
Same.
Annihilation, I thought was good, but so I think for me this fits in that same. Like I think if I were to sum up my reaction, I would say flawed but fascinating.
I think I 100% agree with that. I mean, I can't remember the last time I felt so inside of a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And when I left, I was still in it, and I'm enjoying talking about it all over again. But yeah, flawed but fascinating.
I think that first of all, it's Nick Offerman. He just is. I'm the president of the United States. And you're like, that's Ron Swanson. What's he doing?
Yeah.
But it is, I think, the way he exists in his own little bubble throughout the movie, I think is really interesting, where totally oblivious to everything that's going on. He's like, we're days away from succeeding and all this other stuff. And it's total, it's just propaganda.
Bluster. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the dynamic of, I mean, gosh, I talk about this in my media classes all the time, right? If journalism goes away, we will all know it. We will all feel the effects. It's an essential role in society that we take for granted. And I think this film really does highlight that. However, I think that, I don't know that embedded journalists serve a real purpose,
I worry about whatever sort of peril they may bring about.
I mean, I think the question I had, this isn't a complaint, but a question is, by the end, they're following the Western Front forces.
Uh-huh.
But is that what they're doing earlier in the film? Or are they just, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You can't tell the players without a scorecard. And I feel like, you know, you need to give us something here to kind of give us a sense of what's at stake in this, whatever, you know, whatever battle we happen to be following.
That, and again, back to just my feelings on it, like, and what's at stake for what they're doing. At stake for them. It's stake for the country, the world. Like, I wish I got a little more sense of that.
The Western Front kills the president.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who are the Western Front? Are we in I mean, you know what I mean? And again, that's not his intent.
No.
Fine. But it feels like it's important in terms of getting a sense of who our characters are.
Mm.
Like they want to interview the president. By implication, they're against him.
Yeah.
But why?
See, and it's funny because I actually found the quote from the president before he was shot a little disappointing.
Interesting.
Because this guy, Wagner Moura, was willing to go all the way down and risk his life to get a quote from the president that was just, "Please don't shoot me." Like, well, I was like, really? Like, well, duh. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like the photography in that situation was much more important.
But I take that quote, like, let me put it this, I take his reaction to that quote where he's like, "That's fine," or "That'll do it," or whatever he says. That's his cynicism now, having gone through all this.
That, and also like maybe
lost his best friend.
You know what? Yeah. That, and also backing up what you said too, where it's like, if this president is just saying nonsense, living in his bubble, he doesn't need more nonsense from this guy.
Right.
More propaganda right up to his death.
So whatever story, whatever narrative he's built up, this confirms that narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's me on Civil War.
Yeah. I think if you go in understanding what it is versus what it isn't, you might be better prepared to view it. But also, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's definitely worth checking out. It is an experience, and I think it's a really well done experience. Flawed but fascinating. You said it. That's the poster. Flawed but fascinating.
You know, I will say, you know, because I was earlier this week, I was heading out to watch it, and I'm just like, "Oh, where are you going?" "Oh, I'm watching Civil War." And Hamza happened to me, "So I want to watch that." I was like, "All right, come on, let's go." And we had a great time. And I'm like, "Man, it's so cool that like he wants to watch this type of movie too." You know,
I love that. And this is a movie. I mean, like I said, it just provokes discussion, and isn't that kind of fun?
Yeah,
you know, like just to really think through a work of art.
I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good place to put a pin in this discussion.
Yeah. Well, I will say, it being the highest opening A24 film, I do wonder what the second week will be like after word of mouth. And you mentioned,
it's probably going to drop like a stone, is my prediction.
I think there was probably a high curiosity factor about what will this movie show, like the America at war with one another. And yeah, when you realize that it isn't that movie.
I think people, I'm not even gonna say people. I think you know, the expectation, because when I say people, it sounds denigrating. The expectation is sort of like a Roland Emmerich action thing, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think, hey, that kind of movie might have worked too.
Sure.
You know,
totally.
But I will say this, just I don't, and maybe this is me, I don't want to ponder this happening to the United States.
I agree.
You know,
I don't think, I mean, even thinking just about, I don't know, like, would that movie even have any longevity? It's just sort of a thought experiment that only makes sense this month, this year, you know, like things change so quickly. Like, what is that? Is that really worth the thought experiment? But then more to your point, even, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to live in that.
Right.
That's speculation, you know, like I'd like to try to figure out how to make things better, but
Yeah, yeah. So like Children of Men in that regard, it's a movie. And I appreciate the experience, but it's not a movie I've been able to revisit a ton because it's very unpleasant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The world it exists within is very unpleasant.
And it ends with optimism, though.
That's right.
Yeah,
that is true. Well, I guess this ends with optimism too, depending on how you feel about Nick Offerman. Right. And by that I mean Nick Offerman, the actor. How you feel about him specifically?
Yeah.
Not the character he plays. He's had actually a pretty good year. I was just thinking, he was in that fantastic episode of The Last of Us.
That's right. Yeah, he's really good.
Which that was that episode, without spoiling anything. I mean I feel like for a week that's all people were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which certainly says something. But regardless, hey, let's wrap this one up because we'll be back next week to talk about a movie. We have a commentary track. I'm not going to say what it is, but if you're looking for something that really pulls you in and drives the discussion and makes you delve into hidden recesses of your own experiences, what you've lived, what you hope to live, what you hope to experience, the fears that keep you up at night. Probably none of that actually in our next commentary. Probably none of that. But maybe we'll have.
You know what's funny? I had kind of forgotten, and I just pulled up the calendar right now and looked as you were saying that, and that's hilarious.
I'm not going to say what it is, but we'll be back next week with that.
Yeah.
Brian, anything you want to hype up before we let everybody go?
As always, Young Jedi Adventures. It's been really awesome lately. I feel like I'm hearing more and more people tell me about watching it and their kids watching it and loving it, and it really means a lot. So very proud of it. Young Jedi Adventures is on Disney Plus and Disney Junior.
As you're talking about that show, it occurs to me, maybe Transformers 1 is trying to appeal to the Young Jedi Adventures audience.
I thought of that earlier. I didn't say it, but I mean, that's our show is obviously even younger than that, but right. It's that is absolutely its goal, is to be an on-ramp into the Star Wars universe for kids. Like, here's a lightsaber, here's the Force. Isn't this cool? It's like, yeah, well, now when you have the attention span for a 2-hour movie, you're already in love with it and you're going to love this. So,
well, there we go. So you know what? I consider myself duly chastened after realizing that. As for me, look for my review of Fallout. It's at the San Francisco Chronicle. You can check that out. Got some fun pieces coming up for the wrap, including a look back at Lost, celebrating its 20th anniversary. Ooh. So there we go. We're just talking about that show. You can find me on social media at Zaki's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. Still on X for whatever reason. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm there. Oh, on Instagram also. So hit me up. Let me know. You can also email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As always, please, if you like what we're doing, go to Apple Podcasts, leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. And with that, on behalf of my partner, Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been Movie Film 289. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
Welcome, friends. It's the Movie Film Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.